STEM thinkers and doers. I'm Dorinda Reisenhufer with the NASA Oklahoma Space Grant Consortium. Yes, you heard right, NASA as a National Aeronautics and Space Administration. And you heard Oklahoma Space Grant Consortium. The Oklahoma Space Grant Consortium is one of 52 space grant consortia. There are one in each of the 50 United States, one in Puerto Rico, and one in DC. And our Oklahoma Space Grant Consortium is housed here on the Oklahoma State University campus. And I'm coming to you today from our STEM Engagement Center, or SEC, here on the OSU campus. Now, not only are we part of NASA, but we're also part of the College of Engineering, Architecture, and Technology here at OSU. So now that you understand our role in the world, we are going to move on to some more great rocketry activities. We've been looking at NASA's Artemis mission for these last two demonstrations that we've been doing, and specifically at how we're going to get to the moon, which is with rockets, and how rocket fuel affects that, and how much rocket fuel affects different things. We played with that a little bit with our Fizz rockets. And then we looked at trajectory, the big word of trajectory, and how that affects what path our rocket is going to take. So depending upon the angle that which we aim it is going to decide the path at which it travels. Trajectory. So now we're going to revisit a couple of the rockets we built in our last videos demonstration, and now we're going to look at different things with them. So the first one that we're going to look at is our Stomp rocket. You may remember that from last time, and we used a Stomp rocket launcher, and I'll go through how to make this again here in just a minute. But for this time with the Stomp rockets, we're going to look at how the different materials affect how far our rocket travels. And what do I mean by that? We're going to make 3 different rockets out of 3 different materials. One is going to be construction paper. Another one is going to be regular printer paper. And then our last one is going to be out of foam. And we're going to make them all the same size. We're going to try to keep everything as similar as possible, except for the type of material, because each of these materials weighs a little bit different weight, or a little bit heavier. So of course our printer paper being the least amount of weight, our construction paper being a little heavier than printer paper, but a little lighter than fun foam, and fun foam being the heaviest. So let's make our Stomp rockets first. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is I'm going to take my launch piece off of my launcher, because I'm going to need to use this as a pattern as I make my Stomp rockets. Now you'll notice that I have this smaller piece of fun foam. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to cut down all of my materials so that I'm starting with the same size. So that way we're trying to be as accurate as possible. Now, are there still going to be maybe variances in how much material is here? There might be, but we're going to try to make it as close and limit our variables as much as possible. All right, well that one's pretty easy. That one I can just go straight across. Okay, so now that I have a piece of fun foam, a piece of printer paper, and a piece of construction paper that are all about the same size to start with. Now I can come over to my launcher, or I can come over to my launch piece, and I can use it as a pattern for my body tube, because I want my body tube to fit on there. Now as I roll this across it, what I'm trying to make sure is that this body tube is going to be on there tight, but not so tight, because I want to be able to get this piece on it after I've made it. If I make it too tight, I'm not going to be able to get that piece on it, am I? So I've got to be really careful with that. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to each of these pieces, and I'm going to cut the body tube the exact same on each of those. So that's going to make this section easy. Did you think I was going to have to use that for each of them? Yeah, maybe, but not this time. How I'm doing it, this will work just fine. And then I'm going to take one more out of our construction paper. Okay, now I need to be very careful to put the pieces that don't match over here. Okay, so now what I have is I have these 3 pieces. These are going to be my body tubes. And we can go ahead and make that right now. So first I'll start with the printer paper. And for the printer paper, I'm just going to roll it like so. And I'm just going to use regular Scotch tape. Now, if you don't have Scotch tape at home, you could use any type of Scotch tape. Also, this, just to let you know what size this PVC pipe is, It's a 1/2 inch in diameter, okay? A 1/2 inch PVC pipe. That's all that is. And I'm going to try to just tape that up as much as I possibly can. And I kind of goofed just a little bit, but I'm going to show you how to fix it in case you do the same thing. Whenever I was putting my first piece on, I got a little bit of tape on my body tube example, or my launch rod, that I'm going to use here in just a minute. And so I'm just going to put that tape on the inside, and I'm going to make sure that's my top. So I haven't made this any smaller on the bottom, the open part. Okay, so now I've got one tube. Now we got to make a second tube. So we're going to make this tube out of the Fun Foam. And Fun Foam you can purchase at most craft stores. I just realized I was rolling that wrong. So I've got to make sure it's going to be the same height. If I rolled it that way, it wouldn't be the same height, would it? So I've got to make sure it's the same. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to roll that just like so. Again, I want it tight, but not too tight. And there we go. Now I've got to get one more piece of tape on there. Excellent. And then last but not least, one more piece of tape. All right. So now that will just slide off really easily, and I just noticed that it's coming apart just a little bit. And Scotch tape is a little bit harder to work with on Fun Foam, but it's going to work for this experiment for as well as we need it to. Now again, remember I need that tall side up, so it's going to be as tall as those. And I'm just going to roll. Again, I want to roll it tight where it's going to be airtight, as airtight as possible in there, but not so tight I can't get it off of my launch rod. My launch rod is this 1/2 inch piece of PVC pipe. Okay, so now you can see I've got 3 body tubes. Now the next thing that I need to do is I'm going to need to make nose cones for all 3 of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put all 3 pieces of the leftover side that we didn't use for the body tube. And I'm just going to take that and I'm going to make a circle. And when I cut that circle out, it's actually going to cut the same circle out of all of them. And I'm going to make the circle get a little bit smaller because I realize I'm kind of big. Okay, so I've got 3 small circles, one out of each of the materials. Okay, so next I've got to cut that pie piece or the Pac-Man mouth out of here, or Pac-Woman, either way. So now I have a little mouth. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of those pieces, or one of those nose cone pieces, and I'm going to put my fingers on the edges and just wrap it around like so. Okay, so now I'm going to have a nose cone that looks like that. So I have one nose cone. So I have the nose cone for my construction paper. The next what I'm going to do is out of the printer paper. So I'm just, again, going to put my fingers on the corners. Can you see that? Okay. And then I'm just going to wrap it around like so. And I'm going to tape it shut so it won't come open. And all of my nose cones are leaning a little bit one direction, and it's okay. They're all going to be the same, so that's fine. The next one that I'm going to do is I'm going to do this little pink one, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I took my corners and I wrapped them around each other. And now I'm ready to start putting them on my body tube. So the first one that I'm going to do, since I've already got the Fun Foam in my hand, and it looks like my body tube needs a little bit of repair, so we'll fix that too at the same time. I'm going to do this just like I did with the Fizz Rockets. Over one of the ends, I'm just going to put my nose cone on there, just like so. And when I do that, I want to make sure that it's completely airtight. So I'm going to wrap it up all the way around. And before I do that, I'm going to have to fix this because my body tube, my tape is coming undone. We may have to grab a little bit of duct tape. Usually I can get Scotch tape to work, so we'll see if we can finagle a few ways. I'm just going to try to take a really long piece and go across all those short tape pieces. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I can take the tape and go around the top of my tube and try to make it as airtight as possible. for that rocket. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to do is we've got one nose cone on here. So now we're going to need to get a nose cone on our construction paper. So with that, we're going to take it and go like so. And we've got one side of it on there. And you can do it this way instead of the way I did it before, where we're just kind of getting a little bit of each of the sides, and then we can go back and fill in whatever part did not get taped the first time. And that works too if it's too hard to try to tape it all at once. So there are lots of ways to get this done, and it is okay. You just want to make sure in the end that there's no way that air can get out. So as long as everything's taped around. And it doesn't have to look beautiful. Mine doesn't, and it's okay. It's still going to fly. Fantastic. Okay, so now I've got the printer paper, and I'm going to do the same thing one last time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I did that a little bit different. And I just am putting tape all around the edges. So now, when I stick it on one end, I can just smooth it down. And it looks just like so. Does everyone see that? Excellent. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take and we're going to do corners, and we're just going to get 2 fins really quickly for each one of these. Okay, so that allowed me to make sure that each set of those fins are the same size, or I'm using the same amount of material. So now I can put all of those all the way around. So I'm going to put one on there. I'm going to put my other one on the other side. And then this one, or I just did 2, didn't I? Okay, so now I did that on the construction paper rocket. Now I have to do this on the fun foam. So the fun foam rocket. And then I've got another fun foam. And we've got 2 fins on our fun foam. Now, last but not least, we've got to do our printer paper. So I'm going to put one on there. And I'm going to put the other on there. So 1, 2. All right, so now I've got 3 rockets that are ready to go on my Stomp Rocket launcher. Okay, well, let's go check it out and see what happens when we launch these 3. Which one do you think is going to go the furthest? Do you think it will be the construction paper, the printer paper, or the fun foam? And which will go the least amount of distance? Now I'm going to be very careful to make sure that I launch them all at the same angle. But the one thing that could slightly change is how much pressure is applied. I'm going to try to apply the same amount of pressure each time, but that could alter just a little bit. Well, I'm going to turn off the camera, and I'm going to meet you outside of in our hallway so we can do the launching. All right, see you outside. All right, so now that we're out in the hallway, I'm going to take my launcher down to the end of the hallway, and I'm going to launch each of these 3 rockets. And as I launch them, I'm going to shout out which material I used for each of those rockets. And you can see which one goes the furthest and which one goes the least amount. This will be our fun foam rocket. So let's see what happens with our fun foam rocket. Oh no! Okay, well, I didn't quite anticipate that. What happened was my nose cone came off. So let's troubleshoot that a little bit and see what we need to do. Okay, hopefully that'll stay on this time. Okay, I'm going to have to blow some air in here to blow back up my bottle. And then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! All right, excellent. So that that went down a good distance. That was our fun foam. Next, I'm going to do our construction paper. And I'm trying to get these at about the same angle each time. All right, ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. Oh my goodness, that one went further. So our construction paper went further than our fun foam. And I've got one more to do. And that is our regular printer paper. Now first, I'm going to blow my launcher back up. And, all right, are we ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, basta! Oh my goodness, and my printer paper did not go quite as far as my construction paper, but it did go further than the fun foam. All right, so I wonder, since our heaviest one went the least amount, and our lighter ones went further, what does that tell me? Well, that tells me weight will affect how far my rocket is going to go. So rocket engineers have to think about how much weight this rocket is going to have to carry. And they have to make a rocket that will be able to support however much weight that is. Oh my goodness, we learned another concept. Great job, guys. Let's go back into the classroom. And this time, we're going to do something a little bit more with foam rockets. I'll meet you in there. All right, STEM thinkers and doers, now we're going to look a little bit further at the foam rockets we made in our second video. Only this time, we're going to make at least 2 new foam rockets, maybe 3. It'll just depend on how far we can get with time, and still be able to launch these. So, the first thing that we're going to do is, let's look at what materials we're going to need. You're going to need 3 pieces of about 1 foot of foam pipe insulation. Okay, it can be the kind where you have to take the sticky apart and stick it together. Ours are already stuck together. You can use pool noodles. You could even use a paper towel roll, an empty one. Okay, and not quite as sturdy, but it will work. I promise. I've tried it and it does work. You're also going to need these heavy-duty rubber bands. So they're a little bit heavier dutier than your typical rubber bands. So you'll need those. You're also going to need some fun foam. So we're going to need enough fun foam for 3 rockets. So I'm going to choose 1 pink, 1 yellow, 1 white. So we can have a different color rocket. And you can tell the difference between the fin design out in the hallway when we launch them. For the launcher, I'm going to need a yardstick or a meter stick. And I'm also going to need a protractor, and that'll be very important because we're going to want to keep our angle the same, so that way this time we're not looking at trajectory, we're actually looking at, we're going to look at how fin design affects how far our rocket will fly. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure, oh, I did forget a couple more pieces that you're going to need, and that is duct tape. You will need duct tape for this activity, and you will need scissors. So next, I'm going to make sure that all of my fun foam is about the same size. So all 3 pieces are about the same size. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to think about what I want my fins to look like. I'm actually going to do that before I do my fin wells, so I can kind of get the same size. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, so that I'm sure that my fins on each one are about the same size. So I'm just going to cut this down the middle. Now, since I'm talking about different designs, they're going to look a little bit different after this, okay? They're going to look just a little bit different. So I'm going to put the yellows together, I'm going to put the whites together, and I'm going to put the pinks together, okay? So for the pinks, I am going to just go ahead and leave that just like these, just regular rectangular fins. And so then I'm going to go about halfway in between each side, and I'm going to go halfway, just to cut halfway up. So you see how I did that? I cut just halfway up, okay? Then I can take these fins and stick them together just like this, okay? So these are going to be actually a little bit bigger than the ones we made, because if you remember, we cut those down. So we're using our full amount on this one, full amount of material. Now, this next one, what I'm going to do is I am going to take and I'm going to make them kind of rounded, a little bit different. So I'm going to cut some material off. And I'm going to round these just a little bit. And now that I have them rounded, I'm going to go about halfway, so in the middle, and I'm going to cut up halfway. So now when I put my fins together, they will work together just like that. Interesting looking fins, huh? Awesome. Now this next set that I'm going to make, I think I'm going to make them look like triangles. It looks like I've got a theme, right? Going on. So let's make some triangles. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find the middle point on both of these, and I'm going to cut down like so, and cut down like so. Now I'm going to come to the other side, and I'm going to cut to the middle, and I'm going to cut down. Excellent. So now I've got these fins. Now I'm going to do just like I did on the others, and I'm going to cut about to the halfway mark. And I've got these interesting looking triangles. Kind of interesting. All right. So now it goes just like so. Okay, so we've got triangles, we've got rectangles, and we've got rounded fins. And I am sure you will come up with even more creative ideas. So, since I'm running, looks like short on time, I am going to just make 2 of these really quickly. So I'm going to do just like I did in the first video, and I'm going to cut 4 slits, all the same length. I'm actually going to make these up a little bit higher. So the second slit I did halfway, I did on the opposite side of my first slit. I'm doing this slit halfway in between both of those slits. And I'm doing this slit in between the other, so I have 4 slits just like before. And I'm going to test and make sure this is going to work with my rectangles. Oh, and it does work just like so. So that will work. Now the next thing, I'm going to do this one more time. So just really quickly, 1 slit. 2 slits, 3 slits, and 4 slits. Okay, and for this one, I'm actually going to use my circular looking ones. I'm interested to see how those do. Okay, so now I've got enough room. I can get tape on both of these. So I'm just going to quickly take one piece of tape. Now the great thing is when I cut this in half, I'm going to have enough tape to tape both of theirs on the bottom. So, this and this. All right, put that on my leg. I'm going to do this. Oh, but you know what? I may not quite have enough tape, so I may have to cut one more strip. That's okay. So I've got this one taped on the bottom. Then I'm going to cut one more strip. And I'm going to cut it in half. There we go. And we're just going to tear that apart just like so. And now we can tape those on the bottom. Now I'm just taping that together so that my fins do not fall out. That's really important because I don't want my fins to fall out. Okay, so now I have 2 foam rockets with fins in them. Now I've got to make the part to launch them with. So let's launch them right quick, or make the launch part so we can go launch them right quick. So for this part, I'm just going to cut 2 pieces of tape about so long. These ones don't have to be super long. And it's great. I can use my pants to hold on to my tape, huh? And for these ones, we can just fold them in half. So that's really simple. One, and there we go. Here's the second one. 1 and 2. So now we've got 2 of these. 1, 2. Okay. Now I'm going to need to get, it doesn't have to be super long, but I want it long enough. And I'm going to cut it just like so. And just like so. Okay, awesome. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rubber band and I'm going to stick it through the loop just like so, and I'm going to hold it down. Now once I have it down, I can go across just like this. And it'll work just like that. Now I'm going to put my rubber band through this one. Make sure I get it on the right one. So that is just a holder for my rubber band. And I'm going to do that all the way around. Okay, so now I have 2 rockets that are ready to launch. And when I go out there, you're going to see that I'm going to use this launcher to launch them. And you're like, that doesn't look like a launcher. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this on there so that I'm sure I do the same angle each time. So I'm going to hold that down, and then what I do is I take this and I launch off of that end. And so that way I can try to stay as accurate as possible on how much both force, because I can pull the force back to the same mark on my yardstick or my meter stick. And I can keep my angle the same with my protractor. So let's go out and launch this right quick. All right, so I'm going to go down the hallway to where I've got my rocket set up. And I think I've gotten back far enough. We might be back just a little bit further. Okay, so now I'm going to set my trajectory or my angle at 40 degrees. Or actually, let's set it at 60. All right, so we've got 60 degrees. Now I'm going to take my rubber band and put it up there, and I'm going to go back to what is, because this is reversed, my 83 mark, so I keep it the same. Or actually, let's break it out of 80. And, okay, so that's how far my rectangular fins went. Now let's see how far my other one goes. Okay, and here we go. Oh, let's try that one more time. That one didn't launch so well. Okay, let me make sure I'm still at the 40-degree angle. Or the 60-degree angle, sorry. 60 degree. And then I'm going to take this down to 80. And wow, those round fins went just a little bit further. So, something to consider was that our round fins went a little bit further than our rectangular fins. And why is that? We have less material, right? And that design allowed for less material. It also might have been more aerodynamic, but we'd have to experiment a little bit more to prove or disprove that theory. Well, I hope you guys had a great time of learning how fin design can affect how a rocket flies, as well as how weight affected our Stomp rockets. Well, until I see you next time, race you to the moon.